Clara had never felt so out of place. The elegant ballroom buzzed with the chatter of well-dressed patrons, their laughter and clinking glasses filling the air. She tried to adjust the delicate strap of her dress, feeling self-conscious under the weight of their scrutiny. Her simple, understated gown felt foreign here among the gold, silk, and designer labels that adorned every other woman in the room. The crystal chandeliers above cast a soft glow on the polished marble floors, the entire space oozing exclusivity. This wasn't her world. Clara had never been one to crave attention, never felt the need to compete with the extravagant worlds that Adam, her husband, navigated so easily. She was happy in the quiet, simple life they had built together. But tonight was different. She had been invited to attend one of the most prestigious art auctions in the city. Adam had insisted she accompany him, telling her it was a chance for her to experience something she had never known. But now, standing in the grand room with the glittering elite, Clara felt small, invisible even, lost in the world of extravagant art collectors and investors. The murmurs around her became more pronounced as she entered the auction room, the low hum of voices suddenly growing louder. She couldn't help but overhear the quiet comments about her appearance. She didn't belong here. The whispers were subtle but sharp, like daggers wrapped in velvet. "Look at her, dressed like she's at a dinner party, not an auction," one woman whispered to her companion, her eyes scanning Clara's modest attire with distaste. "She must be new, probably the wife of one of the donors," another added, her tone laced with judgment. Clara's cheeks flushed as she tried to ignore the stares, but the feeling of being out of place gnawed at her. She wasn't used to being the subject of such scrutiny. Adam, who had been busy chatting with a few high-profile clients, was nowhere in sight, and Clara felt the weight of the room pressing down on her. She made her way to the back of the room, hoping to blend into the shadows and avoid any more attention. But it didn't matter how far she retreated. The whispers followed her. A few people shot her disapproving glances, their eyes flicking over her in a way that made Clara feel utterly exposed. But just as she started to retreat further into herself, she heard a voice, a familiar, confident voice that cut through the noise of the room. "Clara." She turned, her heart skipping a beat. Adam, his tall, commanding presence, filled the doorway, his gaze locked onto hers, and for the first time that evening Clara felt something shift in the air. He walked toward her, his usual aura of control and quiet power turning every head in the room. The whispers stopped. All eyes were on him, but when they flickered back to Clara, she could sense that something was about to change. Adam stood beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder. "Shall we?" he asked with a small, knowing smile. And in that moment, Clara realized that no one would underestimate her again. Adam's presence seemed to change everything. The whispers that had once followed Clara like a shadow were now silenced, replaced by a quiet murmur of curiosity. The room that had once seemed so cold and dismissive now felt smaller, the eyes of the guests unable to stay focused on anything but Adam and Clara. The air was charged with an energy that Clara hadn't expected, one of power, authority, and something she had never truly understood until now. Adam's gaze remained steady, focused on her, his hand warm on her shoulder, but she could feel the subtle tension in him as well, the way his posture straightened ever so slightly when they entered the room together. It was clear that he wasn't just here to participate in the auction, he was here to make a statement. "Clara," he said quietly, turning toward her with that same calm yet commanding smile. "Don't let them see that you're bothered." Clara looked up at him, her chest tight with a mixture of emotions. She was grateful for his support, but there was something about the way he was acting that made her feel both relieved and strangely uncomfortable. She had always known Adam to be someone who moved through the world with confidence, someone who could change the course of any conversation with a single word. But to her, that confidence had always been a distant thing, something she admired from afar. "I don't want to cause a scene," Clara murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. She was used to staying out of the spotlight, letting Adam shine while she quietly supported him from behind. Adam's eyes softened, but his grip on her shoulder tightened ever so slightly. "You don't have to cause a scene, Clara. You're already a part of this world. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong. I'm here with you. This is your world, too." Clara's heart fluttered at his words. He was always so sure, so unshakable, and in that moment she realized something profound. Adam had never looked at her as just a side figure. He had always seen her as his equal, someone who had every right to stand beside him, not hidden in the background. But Clara still wasn't entirely sure she could claim that right. She wasn't used to this world. She had never had to navigate the complex web of power, wealth, and influence that Adam moved through so effortlessly. Still, the look in his eyes made her feel like she could, maybe she could. As Adam led her through the crowd toward their table, heads turned and conversation slowed. The high-profile figures in the room, many of them renowned art collectors and investors, watched the couple approach with a mixture of curiosity and interest. It wasn't lost on Clara that they were watching her as much as they were watching Adam, assessing her place in this world. When they reached their seats, Adam nodded politely to the auctioneer, a man who immediately recognized Adam's status. The auctioneer's greeting was respectful, almost deferential, as he made sure to adjust the program for the reserved seats. Clara sat down beside Adam, her hands resting nervously on her lap. The tension of the moment hadn't completely lifted, but she felt a shift within herself, a growing sense of power that had come from Adam's quiet but undeniable confidence. As the auction began, she found herself slowly absorbing the atmosphere around her, not as an outsider, but as a part of it. For the first time, Clara realized that she wasn't just standing beside Adam, she was standing on her own, and tonight her story was about to change. As the auction continued, Clara's nerves began to settle. The hum of conversation and the occasional sound of bids being placed felt distant now, like background noise to the subtle shift taking place inside her. She glanced at Adam, who remained the picture of composure, his attention focused on the art on display. His gaze flickered between the pieces with the practiced eye of someone who had seen it all before, someone who belonged here. Clara tried to focus on the artwork, but her thoughts kept returning to the way the room had changed the moment Adam arrived. The once judgmental glances from the crowd had softened, their curiosity now replaced by a quiet respect. She had never seen Adam in this environment, surrounded by people who admired him not only for his wealth but for his influence. It wasn't just about the money. Adam had earned his place in this world through sheer brilliance, and she realized that tonight she was being pulled into that world as well. But as much as Adam's presence had helped her feel more at ease, Clara couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling of being too visible, too exposed. It wasn't just that she wasn't used to the spotlight, it was the weight of it. She felt every eye in the room on her, like they were waiting for her to say or do something that would prove she belonged. But Clara wasn't sure she had anything to prove. She wasn't like the others in the room. She didn't have years of experience in the art world, and she certainly didn't share the polished elegance of the women who flitted from one conversation to the next with practiced ease. As the next painting was unveiled, Clara's gaze flitted over the artwork before landing back on Adam. He was watching her now, noticing the subtle shift in her demeanor. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice low enough that only she could hear. Clara met his eyes, seeing the concern there that she knew he always carried for her. She forced a smile, not wanting him to see how overwhelmed she felt. "I'm fine," she replied, though the words didn't quite match the unease she still felt deep inside. Adam's eyes softened, and for a brief moment he reached out, placing his hand over hers. His touch was grounding, and in that moment Clara felt his steadying influence. "You don't have to be perfect," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "You don't have to fit into anyone's mold, Clara. You're here because I want you here, because I know who you are. Don't let anyone make you feel less than that." His words, simple as they were, hit Clara like a wave. She had spent so much of her life trying to fit into a world that seemed so foreign to her, trying to meet expectations that she hadn't set for herself. But Adam had always seen her for who she was, even when she didn't see it herself. Clara looked around at the room full of powerful figures, the elite of society, and realized something important. They weren't looking at her to judge her. They were waiting to see if she would take her place alongside them, and tonight, Clara knew she could. She didn't have to apologize for who she was or where she came from. She had as much right to be here as anyone else. As the next piece of artwork was revealed, Adam glanced at her, his eyes filled with quiet pride. Clara smiled back, her confidence building. She wasn't just a passive observer anymore. She was part of this world now, whether she was ready or not. And when the auctioneer turned to the crowd, announcing the next bid, Clara knew something had shifted. She wasn't just a side figure in Adam's life. She was standing with him, equal and undeterred. The rest of the evening blurred into one continuous stream of conversation, bids and applause, but Clara no longer felt like an outsider. She felt like she belonged, not because of who Adam was, but because of who she was becoming. The auction continued into the night, but Clara no longer felt the heavy weight of self-doubt pressing down on her. With every passing moment, her confidence grew, bit by bit. She no longer shied away from conversations, and as the evening unfolded, she found herself engaged in light-hearted exchanges with some of the guests, no longer the silent observer but an active participant. She was aware that their gazes lingered on her, but this time it was different. There was no judgment in their eyes, only curiosity and respect. Adam had made it clear earlier that she didn't need to prove herself to anyone, but Clara realized she didn't have to try to fit into their world. She was already here, in this space, a part of it, just by being herself. And so, she spoke more freely, laughing at jokes and making small talk with a few of the patrons. For the first time in what felt like forever, Clara stopped trying to mold herself into someone she thought they would accept, and instead embraced the woman she was, simple, genuine, and confident in her own right. Adam, ever the observer, noticed the shift in her demeanor. He had watched her transform right before his eyes, from the uncertain woman who felt out of place to someone standing tall, owning her space in this world. He couldn't have been prouder. He had always known that Clara had strength. It was just a matter of her realizing it herself. As the auction began to wind down, the final pieces were brought out for bidding. The atmosphere was tense, the room's energy crackling with the anticipation of what was about to unfold. The guests, well accustomed to the process, whispered amongst themselves about the paintings that had yet to be revealed. Clara leaned in closer to Adam, feeling the subtle electricity that seemed to pulse between them. "This one," Adam murmured, nodding toward a large abstract piece being rolled onto the stage. It was a modern painting, bold and chaotic, yet striking in its own way. "I have a feeling it's going to set the pace for the rest of the evening." Clara glanced at the piece, noting how it seemed to dominate the space, filling the room with a sense of power. She didn't know much about art, but she knew this piece was unlike the others. It spoke to her somehow, a rawness, an intensity that mirrored her own transformation over the past few hours. As the auctioneer began, Adam leaned back in his seat, confident and calm, but Clara could see the flicker of something behind his eyes. There was a subtle competition in his stance, an energy she hadn't noticed before. He was ready to claim the piece not just because of its value, but because of what it represented. This wasn't just about luxury for Adam. It was about winning, securing something that symbolized strength and power, values that had always driven him. Clara felt the charge in the air as the bidding began. The numbers shot up quickly, but Adam's hand remained steady at his side. He wasn't rushing, he wasn't panicking, he was watching, calculating. And when the bidding hit its peak, Adam raised his paddle. "2 million, the auctioneer called out, a clear sign that Adam was claiming victory. Clara looked at Adam in surprise. The moment was intense, but as the auctioneer confirmed the bid, the weight of the room seemed to shift again. It wasn't just the art that had won. It was Adam's quiet authority, his unspoken power that had captivated everyone's attention, even in the midst of competition. As the auction came to a close, Clara realized something profound. This wasn't just about art or luxury. It was about understanding that she, too, could command respect in this world. Adam had shown her that. Not through grand gestures, but through the subtle, steady strength that lay beneath the surface. And as they stood up to leave, Clara felt a sense of calm wash over her. She wasn't just accompanying Adam. She was with him, standing alongside him, strong and ready to face whatever came next. As Clara stepped outside the auction hall, the cool evening breeze greeted her, its freshness a welcome contrast to the intensity of the night. The stars above twinkled softly in the dark sky, a stark reminder of how vast the world was. But tonight, при зрении Clara не чувствовала себя маленькой. She didn't feel invisible. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was part of something big, something important, and most importantly, something that was entirely hers. Adam had won the painting, and the victory had sent a ripple through the room. But Clara's victory was far more personal. She had claimed her own space in a world that once seemed alien to her. The subtle shift in her confidence was evident in the way she held herself now, in the way she walked beside Adam, no longer trailing behind him but standing shoulder to shoulder with him. The car was waiting, and as they slid into the back seat, Adam glanced at Clara, his expression filled with admiration. He had seen the transformation in her over the past few days. The woman who had once been hesitant to step into this world was now embracing it with quiet strength. He had always known that Clara was capable of more than she realized, but seeing her come into her own was nothing short of incredible. "You did it?" Adam said, his voice soft but filled with pride. "You walked into that room and owned it. I'm proud of you, Clara." Clara smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. It wasn't just about Adam's pride. It was about her pride, her own recognition of her worth. She had walked into that room unsure, but by the time the auction ended, she had stepped into her own power. "I didn't think I could," Clara admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "But somehow I did." Adam reached over and took her hand in his touch gentle but reassuring. "You always could. You just needed to believe it." Clara squeezed his hand, a sense of calm settling over her. The weight of the evening, of the transformation she had undergone, didn't feel overwhelming anymore. It felt like a new beginning. She was no longer just a passenger in Adam's world. She was an active participant, someone who could walk beside him as an equal. She had found her voice, her confidence, and with it, a new sense of purpose. As the car moved through the streets of the city, Clara's thoughts wandered back to the art auction, to the moments when she had felt the eyes of the crowd on her. But now, those moments didn't sting as they had before. They were reminders of how far she had come, how much she had learned about herself in such a short time. When they arrived back at the hotel, Adam led her to the elevator, his hand never leaving hers. As the doors closed, Clara looked at him, a quiet but intense gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you, Adam, for everything," she said, her voice steady with conviction. Adam smiled, his eyes reflecting the same pride that Clara felt inside. "You don't need to thank me, Clara. This was always you. You just needed to see it." The elevator doors opened, and as they stepped out into the lobby, Clara realized something profound. This wasn't just about a night at the auction or about Adam's success. It was about her success, her growth, and the quiet power she had discovered within herself. And as she looked around, no longer feeling like an outsider, Clara knew that this was only the beginning of the woman she was destined to become. The following morning, the sun rose over the city, casting a warm glow across the skyline. Clara sat by the window in their hotel suite, watching the world wake up below her. The streets were already bustling with activity, but today, for the first time, Clara felt no desire to retreat from the world. She felt connected to it, as if she had found her place, not just beside Adam, but within the larger picture of her own life. She wasn't just a bystander anymore. She was part of the story. Adam joined her at the window, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm and steady, but Clara could hear the pride in it. It was the same pride he had expressed the night before, but this time, it wasn't just for the victory at the auction. It was pride in her, in the woman she had become. Clara turned to face him, a soft smile curving her lips. "Good morning," she replied. "Thank you for everything, for believing in me when I didn't even believe in myself." Adam's expression softened, and he reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You don't need to thank me, Clara. I've always believed in you. I've just been waiting for you to see it, too." For a moment, Clara didn't speak. She simply stood there, taking in the depth of his words, the kindness in his eyes. Adam had always seen her potential, but it was only now that she truly understood how much she had been holding back, how much of herself she had hidden away, afraid of being judged, afraid of not being enough. But now, standing here with Adam, Clara realized she was enough, not just for him, but for herself. She didn't need anyone's approval to feel worthy. She had learned that her worth wasn't determined by how others saw her, but by how she saw herself. And in that moment she saw someone strong, capable, and full of potential, a woman who could stand on her own and hold her ground. "We've got an event tonight," Adam said, breaking her reverie. "I want you to be there with me, by my side, but not because I need you there, because you belong there." Clara nodded, the excitement of the upcoming evening washing over her. It wasn't just about attending an event. It was about showing the world the woman she had become, the woman she was always meant to be. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparation. Adam had arranged for them to attend another gala, but this time Clara wasn't nervous. She wasn't looking for validation or approval. She didn't care whether the other guests noticed her or not. What mattered was that she was standing tall, walking into the room with confidence, ready to make her mark. As they arrived at the venue, Clara felt the familiar buzz of excitement in the air. The red carpet was lined with photographers, the air thick with the sounds of laughter and conversation. But this time, Clara didn't feel out of place. She felt like she belonged. She wasn't just Adam's wife anymore. She was Clara Thompson, strong, confident, and unafraid to take her place in the world. When Adam offered her his arm, Clara took it without hesitation. They walked into the event together, the whispers of the crowd falling silent as they passed. This was Clara's moment. This was the beginning of a new chapter in her life, a chapter where she didn't need to hide in the background. She was ready to step forward and claim her space on her own terms. And as they entered the gala, Clara knew that nothing would ever be the same again.